The Frederick Douglass Medal was created in 2008 to honor individuals of outstanding achievement as scholars or as civic leaders. Medal recipients represent the ideals which Douglass championed and have contributed to the educational life at the university or in the community, state, or nation. Medals for outstanding academic achievement were awarded in April 2008 to Lonnie Guinier, Professor of Law at Harvard University, and Gerald Torres, Professor of Law at the University of Texas at Austin, who jointly delivered the 2008 Frederick Douglass Lectures sponsored by the university's Frederick Douglass Institute. On September 23, 2008, the inaugural Frederick Douglass Dinner was attended by more than 200 guests from the University of Rochester and the local community. Medals for outstanding civic engagement were awarded to research scientist Walter Cooper and national business leader David Kearns.
Tonight we honor Frederick Douglass as a beacon for so much that the university and this community aspires to achieve. When I think of the career and life of Frederick Douglass, I think of the great moral triumph of the 19th century. A man born in slavery who achieved dignity. A man beaten by a master who conversed with a president. A man forbidden to read who became one of the most powerful writers and orators of his time. The values we celebrate tonight are those we associate with Frederick Douglass. Those as a university we have attempted to integrate into the fundamental values that animate us. We are determined at the University of Rochester to strengthen the bonds with the greater Rochester community. It is now my high honor to preside at a ceremony recognizing tonight's two recipients of the Frederick Douglass Medal. Our first recipient is Walter Cooper. We've prepared a video in which distinguished leaders in our community extol the extraordinary qualities that make Dr. Cooper such an appropriate inaugural honoree of the civic Frederick Douglass Medal tonight.
Walter Cooper, I believe, like Frederick Douglass, had done more for people like me than institutions who have been charged with that responsibility.
I just don't think that Frederick Douglass's vision would still be alive today in this community without a Walter Cooper who's willing to fight the battles, to take on the issues that this community needs to have on the table.
Frederick Douglass in many ways set a high bar to be reached for this community, and I think Dr. Cooper in many respects has done that.
I think a lot of this goes back to Walter's beginnings in the hills of Pennsylvania, where in order for him to emerge and move away from his beginnings, he had to really see beyond that. So Walter Cooper is a visionary.
During his tenure when he was here at Kodak, he was engaged in the civil rights movements in the 1960s. He was one of the founding members of Action for a Better Community. He was one of the founding members of the Urban League of Rochester.
He really believed that education was a gift and that it was not anything you should squander.
The educational system as a whole has really not served the children in the cities very well. Walter came at a time where we needed more voices that were very focused on the child. We were almost soulmates as it related to what we were trying to do and the commitment we have, and the fact that we were in agreement about the responsibility we had in particular at that time to the children of the state.
Walter have helped people like myself from all over the world, from Africa to the Caribbean to Mexico. Actually, he has more friends in Latin America than I will ever have.
He is so inclusive with his thoughts, so respectful of others.
Walter is an individual who never overlooked a human being, despite his or her background, and is always willing to step in and help that person.
Dr. Cooper always said that we had to be willing not only to give back of any time and money, but also of ourselves.
And the only expectation that Walter has of me and those that he helped is that we make a contribution to society.
Dr. Cooper can be looked at as perhaps the modern day Frederick Douglass of this century. And I think it's very appropriate that he be recognized and honored for his contributions to our community.
Walter's achievements have really opened the door for African Americans at Kodak. I often talk to them about the fact that we're standing on the shoulders of others, and we are certainly standing on the shoulders of Walter Cooper.
I have just been absolutely honored to be able to say that Walter Cooper is a very special friend of mine.
I feel privileged to be able to speak on behalf of our own Frederick B. Douglass, Dr. Walter Cooper.
Thank you. President Seligman, former Mayor Johnson, friends, and especially family. It is a deep sense of humility that I accept this great honor to walk in the footsteps, in a sense, of Frederick Douglass is a noble pursuit. In many of my endeavors, as I look out into the audience, I see individuals who played an important role in my development and my journey through the Rochester community. But firstly, I would like to give thanks to my late wife for her patience and her forbearance, to my many absences from home, and also to my sons and eventually my grandchildren. For they tolerated, in a sense, my desire to try to make the world a better place for all. And I think I endeavored, in a sense, from my early days, in a family where the father never went to school, the mother had 9 years of education in southwestern Georgia, 7 children, a laboring father in the steel mills and coal mines of western Pennsylvania. However, there was one signal point in the early years, and that was economically poor but very rich in books and other materials. Poverty is not the defining element in the educational life of a child. We live in a great society where education is free, books are available, and the interest of the community is great, because we understand that the future of any community, any society, is dependent upon how well we educate the present generation. Much of my effort has been devoted to education from the early days of Lamar Jackson and others as members of the Youth Council of the NAACP. Education was always the primary issue to be considered. I have endeavored with many in the audience in a wide range of community activities, national activities, and international activities. The success of the Bamako-Mali Rochester Sister City relationship would not have occurred without the assistance of many people, the International Medical Division of the University of Rochester. And I must pay great tribute to the university per se, because even though I had a great interest in education, my days here as a graduate student opened my eyes to the world because of the international composition of the chemistry and physics departments. We had the head of the chemistry department was a member of the UNESCO committee. The head of the physics department was an internationalist. And we had on campus enriching experiences because the university had the world's largest cyclotron in the world, 250 million electron volts. So every 2 years, the Enrico Fermis, the Victor Vyckoffs, the Hans Bethe, and all of the great post-World War II physicists came to Rochester to enjoy the intellectual stimulation of their colleagues worldwide. That opened my eyes to the world through many discussions, and I'm forever thankful of that. I think we have a long way to go, but I think the foundation has been set, and I think the university can play a creative role, like all of you individuals, in making this community a better place for everyone. And I thank you for the medal. I think it's one of the highlights of my life, to follow in the footpaths of Frederick Douglass, one of my historical heroes. Thank you again.
Walter, thank you for those deeply moving remarks, but most of all, thank you for the exemplary life you have led and all that you have meant to those of us in Rochester. Our second recipient of the Frederick Douglass Medal this evening is David Kearns. In a moment, we will see a video recognizing David Kearns' life.
It's not diversity. It's David, in his heart, believing that at a base level, every single human being should have a chance.
That mission of his is the one thing that stuck with me more so than anything, because through the Kearns Center, you see his mission.
This honor for David is so appropriate, so absolutely right, spot on.
When you first meet David Kearns, you say, he's the chairman and CEO of a company, because back then there was a certain grandeur to the role. David would help and talk with anyone.
David doesn't put on airs. He's a humble man, but he's also a fearless man. He had to be to run a corporation and take on a great challenge like America's public schools.
David Kearns has never run from a fight. As a matter of fact, he started one or two, all for the good of the community and the good of his company. When he took Xerox from a bad place to winning the Malcolm Baldrige Award for quality, that helped David to understand the value of education.
Visiting Japan, David had the foresight to see how crucial education would be for America's future in the global economy.
He left corporate America to go into public service, to go serve.
His friends told him not to do it. This was 1991. Here he was, the CEO of Xerox. He was at the peak of his leadership in education.
I called him personally more than once, and I'm not afraid to say I leaned on him pretty hard. I said, your country needs you.
He dealt with issues that went beyond the classroom. Hunger, learning in terrible facilities.
I went to an old segregated, dilapidated, overcrowded, double-sessioned high school. I used a plain geometry book in 1951 that had been used by a white student in 1935. They were not giving young, bright people the opportunities that they needed to make the state a successful entity. Just dumb.
In some areas, up to 50% of our public high school students are dropping out. We have to level the playing field for all students. David didn't believe in just throwing money or technology at a problem. He made himself personally accountable for getting results.
He didn't just dream about it. He made phone calls, he made office visits, he made speeches. He used the resources of his office and his place in corporate America to exert influence.
Dave Kearns and relationships. I mean, with his family, with his companies that he has been so involved with his friends, with the citizens of the world, relationships is what Dave Kearns is all about.
As I always say to him, he was raised a good man. You know, he was raised a good man in his soul. This is a man who is the perfect example of the Frederick Douglass Award. David pushes forward for the same reason that Frederick Douglass is. Not because it's a popular thing, and not because he's going to benefit immediately from it, but because he understood and understands that it's the right thing to do.
Thank you, Mr. Kearns, for your support and for your mission and the symbol that you represent. And I hope that one day that I can become an inspirational figure of some sort of greatness just like you are.
I've been asked if I would say a few words, and my bride, Shirley's right here with me, for several reasons. And I'll mention one first, and that is that I have promised her I would be less than 30 seconds. I want to tell you, I've gotten a number of awards, and I've been proud, and I feel terrific, and hope my mother and father are looking down and so forth. This is the best award I have ever received. And I feel I am tied to the university. And as others have said, there is a lot to do. However, being involved in this has made me feel good. And being involved with the university and continuing to be makes me feel terrific. And I'm going to end by saying, my bride, Shirley, where are you?
Right here.
I'm in love with you.
Thank you for telling the world.
And I will walk off and say, this is my best friend. And thanks a lot.
Let me thank all of you who joined us tonight. This is our effort to symbolize our bond with the community. The bestowal of the Frederick Douglass Medals will be an annual event at the University of Rochester, and I look forward to welcoming many of you in the years to come. When this university formally began with the inauguration of its initial president, Martin Brewer Anderson, he concluded his address with the remark, "Our work is but begun." When we celebrate the moral triumph of Frederick Douglass, our work is but begun. The society he dreamed of, the society for which Dr. Walter Cooper and David Kearns devoted their careers, is not fully here yet. We glimpse it, we see it, we know what it would be like. In recognizing Frederick Douglass, we commit ourselves to moving ever closer to that society. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude this evening with the words with which this university began. Our work is but begun. Thank you so very much for joining us.